Resident Evil 4 Remake was one of 5 games to receive an essential and well-deserved 10 out of 10 score from GameSpot in 2023. It featured all the over-the-top action of the 2005 original, reimagined in Capcom's crispy, airtight RE engine. So let's examine why this game is, in fact, a perfect remake. An Ashley who's less interested in flirting with Leon and more interested in not being the reason gamers everywhere hate escort missions. A minecart chase featuring the iconic chainsaw guy. And Ada Wong's ass. Okay, Ada Wong in general, but she does have a great butt. Now, allow me to explain why Ada, and not just her butt, are significant here. First, a personal history. The smattering of folks who followed my gaming career know that I have infamously hated this character since 1998. In 2020, when we were all at home trying to find stuff to do to pass the time, a friend of mine made a bunch of our crew into wrestlers in WWE 2K19, and we'd run AI battles and comment on them. So because I was such an Ada hater, he made her for me to wrestle. And I absolutely owned her ass in less than 30 seconds. The origin of this hatred? Well, in 1998, romantic rivalry was part and parcel for basically any piece of fiction containing more than one woman, and I, a precious young 12-year-old who probably should not have been playing Resident Evil 2 in retrospect, identified more with Claire and was obviously in love with Leon, who was modeled in the fashion of what young hot guys looked like in 1998. So, because I saw myself as Claire, I wanted her to be with Leon, and Ada, she was getting in the way of that. Now, is this a fair basis for hating a fictional character? Absolutely not, but I was a 12-year-old girl. What do you want? Then, everything changed with Resident Evil 4 Remake. A killer new outfit, still super sexy, but definitely more practical than her original dress. A brilliant, understated performance by Lily Gao. And yes, her ass is top tier. I mean, have you played the Separate Ways DLC? But there was something else too, and this actually brings me back to my main point here. Resident Evil 4 is a perfect remake, and Ada Wong is a big part of why. So let's roll it back to 2005 when Resident Evil 4 was released. First of all, this game famously went through multiple iterations before it finally became the game it was. There was the Leon infiltrates Umbrella's European headquarters, gets infected, and does magic edition, the haunted castle with possessed dolls and living armor version, and most importantly, Leon and not Ashley and a mutant dog make their way through Spencer Castle, which honestly, kinda wish they'd kept the dog. Every game is better with a dog friend. The version that we actually got was almost entirely the brainchild of Shinji Mikami, who directed the original Resident Evil released in 1996. This was when the dynamic third-person over-the-shoulder camera was envisioned, integrated, and eventually went on to become industry standard for third-person action games. And while, of course, this was one of the features that we fondly reflect upon when examining Resident Evil 4, there's another big player here. That sweet, sweet dialogue.
No way, Leon.
Way.
With the 3 previous versions scrapped, Mikami wrote the entire script by himself in just 3 weeks. Now, famously, the original Japanese language script was not quite the campy romp we got in the West. Well, it was standard in localization of Resident Evil games to add humor to the dialogue. I mean, who could forget the infamous Jill sandwich?
That was too close. You were almost a Jill sandwich.
You're right. Barry, thanks for saving my life.
But OG Resident Evil 4 really upped the ante. Now, was this B-movie schlock in the original release intentional? Maybe, but RE4 Remake makes it abundantly clear that this style of writing is 100% meant to be there.
What are we gonna do, Leon?
Hate to say it, but we're sandwiched, all right.
From the moment Leon tells a gathering of pursuing Ganados,
I'll let myself out.
we know this game is committed to its goofiness, which it elegantly pulls off throughout, until Leon and Ashley make their timely escape on a jet ski. And this campy panache is beautifully paralleled in the gameplay. Now, this is a chicken and the egg situation in terms of which came first, the dialogue or the gameplay, but what we can be sure of is that the original game existed as a framework for both. And the reimagined game leans into the ridiculous on both fronts. Before we dissect some of the finer points, let's zoom out and look at another horror classic reimagined in the film world, Evil Dead. The Evil Dead, released in 1981, was the pinnacle of low-budget horror. You can see the seams and marvel at the cleverness of the cost-effective effects and inventive use of camera angles. There is some discussion as to whether or not the movie was actually meant to be funny at times, or if it was incidentally so as the result of what was at the time next-level mangling, maiming, and gory destruction. Either way, the film's final girl, Ash Lee Williams, played by the undeniably charismatic Bruce Campbell, wasn't yet beating himself up with a possessed hand. The slapstick humor and quotable catchphrase-slinging chainsaw-handed hero, which we now associate with the Evil Dead franchise at large, didn't come about until 1987 with the release of Evil Dead 2. Reframing in the context of Resident Evil, we can look at this two ways. The original Resident Evil 4 included the goofy dialogue.
I see that the president's equipped his daughter with ballistics, too.
How rude!
And yes, Leon roundhouse kicks and suplexes Ganados, but due to perhaps the constraints of the GameCube, the gameplay is not as silly as the script is. Truly cannot imagine attempting to steer a minecart while simultaneously gunning down a chainsaw guy with tank controls. With Evil Dead, it almost feels like the opposite. While the script was more or less serious, the low-budget filmmaking couldn't support it, and so it became a little silly. Alternatively, we can look directly at the parallel between the characters of Ash Williams and Leon Kennedy. Resident Evil 2 Leon is who we shall lovingly refer to as Bowl-Cut Ash from the OG Evil Dead. Fresh-faced, can't even crouch, let alone suplex a zombie, woefully unprepared for the horrors he encounters. But Resident Evil 4 Leon? That's the Ash that comes to mind when you hear the name. Full arsenal of weapons, can roundhouse kick you to death, and overflowing with quippy one-liners.
Sorry, didn't realize it was yours.
Hearing the difference in Nick Apostolida's delivery between 21-year-old rookie cop Leon and 27-year-old special agent Leon, who has seen some shit, is a genuine delight. Now let's go back to Evil Dead for a moment, specifically Fede Alvarez's 2013 film. We've come around on it now, but initially there was a fair amount of criticism towards the lack of absurd humor we'd come to expect from the series. It's undeniably more horror than comedy, and longtime fans of the series they weren't ready for that. Alvarez tried to reinvent the wheel to reinvigorate the series to understandably mixed reception. Where Resident Evil 4 Remake really succeeds is in not doing that. It honors how beloved the original game is and how influential it was on all action games that came along thereafter. The core gameplay of the game and so many others cannot exist without the original, and Remake is not trying to replace what you already know and love. Instead, it takes what was great about the 2005 game, leans in, and builds alongside it. Take, for example, the character of the Merchant. A lesser game would have tried to explain his presence, make him make sense within the context of the story. But RE4 Remake understands that what makes this guy great is that he has no context. So instead of making him a serious arms dealer with a backstory and a name, he remains an anonymous robed figure now equipped with a full array of witty dialogue and sass that changes depending on your interactions with him.
Don't get yourself killed now.
And we simply must discuss the expanded role of Luis Serra, and not just the fact that Leon actually pronounces his name correctly now.
Luis, where are you?
In the OG game, Luis gets killed off unceremoniously by Sadler after having only served as a partner character during the holdout in the cabin after Leon initially rescues Ashley. But baby, that was not enough, and we give thanks every day to the Remake devs and the sultry look Luis gives Leon when he follows him down to the shooting range. I mean, Chapter 7 alone is the most video game that ever video gamed. Clever trick to defeat giant boss? Check. Completely unnecessary minecart chase? Check.
Going off the rails! Give me a hand!
Ends in an over-the-top knife fight? Why, yes. Yes, it does. Actually, what it really ends in is a tender moment wherein Leon finally gives in to Luis always wanting to smoke and holds his hand as he dies, telling him he was a fine knight, Don Quixote. I love this game. Even the Ada Wong-centric Separate Ways DLC gave us more Luis. I mean, the whole thing opens with him performing a flamenco in a jail cell as Ada comes to his rescue. He partners up with her as well, and there's a whole chapter of her story centered around gathering ingredients for him to make more of the medicine to suppress the Las Plagas infection in Leon and Ashley. He literally runs into a burning laboratory, almost dies of asphyxiation in a bid to retrieve the already ruined medicine, then Ada rescues his ass and is like, you know what, I'll help you get the stuff to make more. In exchange for the amber she's after, sure, but really it's because she's moved by how much Luis wants to save Leon. And here is where Ada fits into and completes this perfect equation. Like all the characters in Resident Evil 4 Remake, she is subtly reimagined. Where in the original she was an unshakable femme fatale, Remake paints her as more of a sexy, capable anti-hero. Beneath Lily Gao's carefully measured monotone is a deluge of emotion threatening to break through. This is an Ada who feels the weight of her decisions while still being wholly committed to them. When Ada tells Leon, "You haven't changed, you just think you have," it is with relief. She does not mean to belittle him, but is rather glad to see that Leon's choices trouble but have not fundamentally altered him in the way hers have. Playing as Ada in the Separate Ways DLC, her playstyle is exactly what you'd expect from a professional badass. Trivial realities like height and distance are made obsolete thanks to the physics-defying power of Ada's grappling gun. But that's not all. Ada also has spy senses and can track footprints to locate people or solve puzzles. And she's extra sneaky. I don't know, maybe this was just my experience, but I had like a way easier time stealth killing Ganados as Ada. With Leon, it was like I breathed in their general direction and suddenly a bunch of angry pitchfork-wielding villagers were onto me. What really works about Ada and all of Resident Evil 4 Remake is juxtaposing the ridiculous with the real. Ada's performance is grounded while her gameplay is not. This is the formula for success when it comes to camp, which Remake is a shining example of. Consider, if you will, one of the greatest examples of camp in the 20th century, Tim Burton's 1992 flick, Batman Returns. The brilliance of Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman is that, while yes, she backflips and/or cartwheels around Gotham City and literally licks herself to bathe as a cat would do, meow. There's a real sincerity to her interactions with Bruce Wayne, and we believe her when she says that she wishes she could run away and live in his castle. I'm paraphrasing there, but the point is that we get her. Camp fails when we lose all sense of reality and ability to relate to the characters. But Resident Evil 4 Remake is an absolute triumph. I've already made the Leon Kennedy, Ash Williams comparison, but it's apt and it works because these are characters who use quippy one-liners as a shield against the horrors they regularly face. Underneath it all, there's still Bowl Cut and little new-in-town rookie who changes into his police uniform even though the entire city has been overrun with zombies. And Ada is the final puzzle piece in this perfect composition. Yes, the updated gameplay rocks, but where Resident Evil 4 really earns that 10 out of 10 score is in the storytelling. It doesn't dramatically change any story beats, but instead focuses on expanding the relationship between the characters. Catching a glimpse of Luisa's death through Ada's eyes, who takes it upon herself to pursue the fleeing Krauser, giving Leon time to grieve. Okay, I know Leon goes after him, like, literally right after that, but you'd have to let me have this one, okay? Ada's choice at the end of the game to not give the Amber to Wesker, while present in the original, hits harder thematically both in the way it's presented, with her actively making the change in the moment, and in the way it parallels Luisa's character arc. And though the game stars Leon, it's not really about him. It's about people who've done bad things to ensure their own survival, choosing to try and make things right in some small way. I'd already started to like Ada in the main game, honestly in large part due to the compelling acting choices made by Gao, but once I played Separate Ways, a 25-year-long grudge finally came to a long-deserved end.
Everything will work out just fine.
The greatest remakes of already beloved games succeed by invoking the feeling you had when playing the original. It's like the devs reached into your brain and made the game you remember, not the one that actually exists where you can't run and reload your gun at the same time. But Resident Evil 4 took this a step further, not only replicating the thrill and terror of battling a possessed agrarian mob while curled up in one of those saucer chairs found in every college dorm room, but also making me fall in love with these characters all over again. Or, in Ada's case, for the very first time. And that's growth, baby.
Don't worry, Leon. First time's free.